Welcome, everyone, to the ExecuBalance Podcast, where we dive into what it looks like to have balance in our professional and personal pursuits. I'm Chad Crowe. I'll be your host for this episode. I'm also the CEO of techwood.digital and father to 4, husband to 1, so I know what it's like to have a crazy schedule and struggle to find balance. Before we begin today's episode, I want to invite you to help us continue the conversation by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We look forward to connecting and having deeper conversations so that we all can grow together and continue this podcast. So please connect with us there, as well as make sure to visit our website at ExecuBalance.com. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to spend some time with Jessica. Jessica, now you own a digital marketing agency really in the social space called Sohuis, and that's kind of where we met by interacting and doing some work together. Tell us a little bit more about your role there and what you do.
Yeah, no, we did. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Sohuis actually... A lot of people call it an agency, but it's actually not. We've really pivoted more to be a true educational platform. So, of course, that can mean very many things, but we don't work with clients one-on-one. I don't do any consulting anymore, thank God. And Sohuis was really derived out of all of my previous agency experience. And I really wanted to find a way to support the customer that I really loved, which was early stage female founders, like typically women within the first 15 to 18 months of either launching something new, or women who have had a company for a while, but they're like, I just need to, I need to pivot. I need to engineer our solution or something like that. So usually that 12 to 18, 15 month time frame is our sweet spot. And prior to 2018, I had never built an online course ever. And this was like kind of before online course, everyone had an online course. Now everyone has an online course. But at the time, it was right before that. But for years, I had been teaching on this topic on branding and marketing, and particularly helping women understand all the ins and outs of, this diverse discipline. And I figured, me being a young mom at the time, there was a way for me to do a one-to-many relationship versus a one-to-one. And plus, I had been working with clients at that point for probably 10 years, and I was just honestly over it. I was like, I'm so over these proposals. I'm so over these long sales cycles. Like, how do we digitize this information and make it available to more women who really need it? And my particular customer, for the most part, they don't have thousands of dollars to spend on an agency, right? Like, they don't have all this cash flow sitting in a bank somewhere for, this expert consultant to come in and help them. So we really had to rethink, how do we deliver this knowledge in a way that is profitable for the business, but also best for the customer? And so that's where Sohuis has landed, being this educational platform.
Awesome. Now, let's dig in a little bit of why early stage development women?
Yeah. So many reasons. The biggest thing is, my background. I'm sure we'll probably get into that later. I've worked with tiny little startups all the way up to big global enterprises. I've seen the same problems repeat themselves over and over and over again, no matter if you have a huge budget or a team of 1 or 2. And particularly for women, and of course, I'm going to oversimplify for the sake of the conversation. There's always exceptions to the rule, but most women in our community, and the women that I've worked with over the years, they have really unique challenges for their businesses because we take it so personally, right? Like, we love our businesses with all of our heart, and we really want them to represent all facets of our life for the most part. And so in doing so, we forget that the way to build a business is with the fundamentals and the basics. And women oftentimes want to have the entire solution figured out at the beginning. And the reality is that in entrepreneurship, that's not the case. Most of the time, your business is going to end up changing into something that you never even figured it would be. That's exactly what's happened to Sohuis over the past few years. And so just really helping women understand that they have to walk, or they have to crawl before they can walk, is really important, especially from a marketing perspective. Like, if you don't understand your customer, like, doesn't matter if you have a bazillion Instagram followers, if you don't know how to convert those customers into loyal, or those leads into loyal raving fans, it's, so the basics really make a big difference.
Awesome. Let's so to get to know you more, and I think too, it sounds like this comes from kind of personal, a personal passion from experience.
Yeah.
So to get to know you more, let's run through some of the roles that you've maybe had in the past, and then roles that you're currently balancing. Maybe we can start first professionally and then personally.
Yeah, sure. So, my current role is founder and CEO of Sohuis. That's my official title. I have many other personal roles, which we'll get into, but, I did not go to school for marketing, which is one of our biggest value propositions for Sohuis. And a lot of women, and particularly a lot of founders, think that if you're to be good at marketing, you're kind of from this unicorn planet and only certain people are good at marketing. And that's not the case. You can actually learn fundamentals and learn these disciplines. And so I think it's really special that I did not go to school for marketing. And I've had the experience that I have. I did go to school for communications and design, and so that has fueled my ability to be a really good marketer over the years. But I just sort of stumbled into it. I actually worked in restaurants for like 8 years. I was raised by a single mom, and so before that, I was a premier soccer player. And my mom basically sat me down when I was 14, and she was like, "Cool. So no one ever in our family has gone to college, and that's going to be you. And so I'm going to need you to either get a soccer scholarship or an academic scholarship." And so that background is really kind of what fueled me to land in entrepreneurship. But being raised by a single mom, I never had a relationship to entrepreneurship at all. It was not in my vernacular. Now they teach entrepreneurship classes in college, and that wasn't the case when I was in school. Not that I'm that old, but like they weren't teaching these things when I was in college.
And I don't think they're teaching them that well right now either.
Right. They're teaching it from an academic perspective and not, real life. Yeah. And so just working in restaurants, just literally trying to survive, like live on my own, ramen noodles, the whole 9 yards. I had this like crappy apartment, like just me and my dog. It was a whole thing. Yeah. And so I ended up getting an internship at this global fashion brand. And that's kind of a crazy story how that happened. We can get into that if you want, if we have time. But and that's how I ended up working in PR. And that's how I then ended up in marketing. And so it was kind of like this, one life event led to after another, seeing opportunity, taking opportunity where I could find it. And then I was working up into this global fashion brand. And then my job got eliminated, not just mine, but the entire company. They were like, this position is not needed, which is very common in corporate America. And my now husband, but we were just dating at the time, the story goes that after like 7 bottles of wine and a lot of pasta later, we decided that weekend to just launch our own company. Like he had deep tech and creative background. I had ad PR background at this time. Also, I was really good at project managing and clients and biz dev. And so we created our first website that weekend. We printed our business cards off of Vistaprint, and we were in business Monday morning. And it wasn't until I actually became an entrepreneur by force that I realized, like all these things about me that got me in trouble in corporate America, or that these walls that I would hit, and because I had never been an entrepreneur or known anything about owning a business, I couldn't make those connections until I actually had that lived experience. And so a lot of these things about myself that were deterrents in a corporate environment ended up being real strengths for owning a business. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since.
Awesome. So, so CEO, owner, entrepreneur, obviously a big role now.
Marketing director. Yeah.
Marketing director.
Yeah.
How about personally? What roles are you currently balancing?
Yeah. So my biggest role is mom, with the second on the way. So we're super pumped about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I was never like that kid who like wanted to grow up and like be married and like have kids, but I always really liked kids. And my husband and I decided to start a family. And that's actually one of the reasons why we folded the agency after 5 years, because we were like, agency life is not for us. Like, it's just not what we want to be doing right now. And then I ended up working for a global nonprofit, and we would build entrepreneurial ecosystems around the globe. So I got to see that happen on a global scale, which was really cool. And through that process, that's actually one of the reasons why I took that role. It's a nonprofit, so it paid less, but it had health insurance, which is one of these things you need when you're a new parent. So mom is my biggest and most important role. I definitely consider myself to be a very good partner. My husband and I have, an awesome relationship. We're very 50-50, non-conventional gender roles plays a big thing in our house. And my mom is very important to me. So, of course, I'm a daughter as well. I'm now going to be a co-founder because we're bringing in a co-founder, which is a different role that I haven't had in a while. So I'd say those are probably my big groupings.
Yeah, that's a lot, and a lot to balance kind of at one time. I'd love to back up a little bit too. You talked about how getting into and actually starting your first company, you had an aha moment of, oh, I was this way. And because I was uniquely designed to do what I'm doing now. And I understand that now. What do you think some of those things are that we do a disservice of in schools and in life and try to squash that actually are things that turn out to be useful tools that people need to be, especially if they want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, such a good question. That's a big question. So I was always a really good student. I got good grades, all the things out of necessity. And also I just didn't know any other way because my mom was like, get good grades. But with that said, I was a terrible test taker, standardized test taker. Terrible ACTs, SATs, but I'm, very smart. And I have this weird ability to look at a problem with like a multitude of sides and see like 10 solutions to one problem. And that would get me in trouble with like taking tests because I genuinely would read the question, and I wasn't trying to be difficult or trying to be a bad student, but I would be like, no, but really, there's like 5 answers to this question.
Show your work. Right?
I know, show your work. Yes.
Which way?
Well, yeah. And that got me in trouble a lot. And then even working in more conventional work environments. I mean, I'm a big, I've always respect process and systems and all that, and that's fine. But, I could easily look at something and say, we're doing that in 12 steps. We could easily do that in 4. And that would always get me in trouble. So yeah, those are probably 2 pretty good examples.
Those are, I think, very specific examples that I can absolutely identify with. Also, something else you also mentioned too, kind of on the personal side, you and your husband being in very gender fluent roles. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and why is that so important to allowing you guys as a couple and as a family to find balance?
Yeah. So my husband's from Amsterdam. Not that all Dutch people are the same, but my husband does not have this toxic masculinity that you see often with American men. And again, of course, I'm very generalizing, but he just grew up so differently. And my husband loves to cook, and with me being raised with a single mom, of course I can cook. I supported myself for years and years, but it's not my love language. It's not the way I express care to others, whereas for him it is. And so, for us, we just found what we're uniquely good at. And I kind of see us as both being like co-captains on a ship. It just depends on life seasons. Like there was a time in our marriage where, for the first 6 months of my daughter's life, I was the primary breadwinner. I had a full-time job, and my husband worked as well, but he had clients and, he was consulting. So 1 month was a great month and the next month wasn't. And my husband was a primary caretaker for my daughter for the first 6 months. She was with him pretty much all the time. And it's funny, I would go to a spa or with my girlfriends to go get lunch or whatever. And someone would ask me oh, where's your daughter? I'm like, oh, she's with her dad. And every single person would say, they would be surprised, oh, really? He's parenting? And I'm like, yeah, it's her dad. What? They just thought it was insane that I would leave her with him. And I would hear that over and over and over again. And I would just be wow, society is really not set up for women to have other identities outside of mom. And for me, I love being a mom. I mentioned it's my first role, but I also knew when we decided to have a family, I was look, I can't be a stay-at-home mom. I just can't. I will not function well as a human being. And I have so much respect for moms that stay at home, but for me, it's just not what I can do. I have to exercise my brain in different ways. And we knew that and planned for that before we even decided to have a family. So hopefully those are all kind of examples of us like being co-captains on a ship and sort of like going with the tide and figuring out what works for us and what doesn't.
Absolutely. Maybe you can appreciate this too as a communications background, words have a very interesting kind of thoughts behind them, right? Like certain words, they don't have meaning unless everybody has agreed they have meaning. And that can be, I guess, good sometimes for communication so that, okay, we're in the same general topic. But if you don't take the care and the time to really say, okay, when I say this word, I mean these things, then the communication can't happen. One of the big examples of communication people like to use is the word love, right? Like love can mean different things to different people. We have books like The 5 Love Languages and different things like that. My wife notoriously, love to her means words of affirmation. For me, it's touch, it's gifts. And so, if I stick with my meaning of love, she doesn't feel loved. And that's, I think also too, when we use words to describe roles, like husband, wife, man, woman, and different things like that too. So there's some group meanings that are just chunked all together. And when two people use those words at the same time, I doubt they ever truly mean 100% the exact same thing. And so I love the word just general neutral roles. Like, okay, it just cleans everything up. It's like, okay, we're not going to even try to say, I'm going to create a box for us to start talking about. Let's just start from the beginning. Let's get, and I love 2 captains on a ship. Let's get it done. Like that's absolutely life. And the more people you put on that ship, it only helps to have more hands willing to do everything.
Yeah, it's a crew like mentality for sure. I mean, yeah, I love that. I love those examples. And, to kind of piggyback off of that, I mean, we do definitely have roles. So like, for example, my husband willingly admits like he sucks at like organizing our lives, right? So like if we want to sign up for something, like here's a really example. He has a dentist appointment in a few weeks. I get all the notifications for the dentist appointments because I'm like, I live and die by my calendar, which is like, how do we manage it all? Like my calendar has like 75 different colors and it's very organized and, he is terrible at that. And, he's very, he very much plays masculine roles. Like if we need something built, like, sure. Could I get out there with a hammer? Absolutely. But do I want to? Nah. So my husband's going to go out there and build it first. So like we definitely do, fit in some ways into what you would see as, gender stereotypical roles. But to your point about living in boxes, it's not like I do this and he does this and there's no overlap. Like that doesn't exist.
So talk to me a little bit about, roles when they've kind of, especially professional and personal roles, when they've kind of crossed over. How do you, when those happen and it's negative, how do you plan and make sure that doesn't happen in the future? Yeah. Or, if you have any examples, those would be great.
I do. I have tons of examples. That's again, one of the big reasons that I decided to stay an entrepreneur is because as the boss, right, you get to decide what that looks like for you and for your team. And, I talk about my mom a lot and, my mom did the best she could. She working, 3 or 4 jobs, right? So since my office is at home currently, my daughter sees me working a lot. And I noticed when she was really small, she would kind of have this negative attitude towards the space, towards my office, right? Because she feels like I'm being taken away from her. And so from a very early age, I'm probably like 18 months or, around 2, I started involving her in my work. So if I have to take a call, I would never apologize for it. And plus I work with women primarily, right? So, and even I have taken tons of phone calls with men, partners, other people. I'm like, look, my daughter's here. Like, this is just how it is. I make no apologies for it. And she'll, take notes but then also her and I have a dialogue like, hey, mommy's got to hop on a phone call right now. I need you to be respectful of the space. And she learns that there are boundaries that can be, pushed and pulled. So from a very early age, I noticed that my daughter didn't do very well if I separated those things. So to help her better acclimate to our life, because I'm always going to be working, right? I involved her. And now when COVID happened, right, that threw everything on its head. And so we created a co-working space in my home office. And so now she has her own little desk and like her own little cute little computer. And now we cohabitate brilliantly. And I can take phone calls all day. And Aiden, you know, of course I don't just like leave her at her table, but you know what I mean? Like she has very good work call etiquette. And it's because of us kind of co-creating this space together. So that would be one reason. And then why I feel so strongly about creating that space now is because a really good example is when I was nursing, I was working for the global nonprofit and my boss was a woman and she was very great about bringing Aiden in. But on the days that I didn't, and we're going to get real personal here for a second. So I would pump under my desk and I remember sitting under my desk, like having my breast pump attached on the call with the European Union and my marketing manager. I'm like, can you take notes? Because like, I don't have any hands and I have to like pitch this global strategy for like this big thing that we're doing with the EU. And my pump is just like making all this noise in the background. And I was just like, this is not okay. Like, this is not okay. I mean, it was fine and funny at the time, but it really inspired sort of this like co-mingling of life. Like, you know, society expects women to work as if they don't have children and raise kids as if they don't work. And for me, and for us in our household, that just simply doesn't work.
Yeah, well, you can't have both, no matter what.
Yeah.
Nobody can be fully present at two places at one time. Right. I think I'm a big proponent of like, how do you intertwine things to find balance? Because I think, little boxes, they'll never balance out all the time. Yeah. Because you can't just say, I'm only going to work these hours. I'm only going to work these days. I mean, I guess you can, but the reality of it is you're not. Either you're going to be working in your head at some time, yes, or you're going to be actually answering an email or handling something at some point. And so, so I love that you're being even more intentional and intertwining, creating the co-working space is absolutely adorable. But I have to assume though that that didn't just happen overnight. Like, as you mentioned, you said, so there was awkward and hard moments to get to that point, but I guess the cost is worth the benefit, to use business more terms, to get there. But can you talk to how was it uncomfortable at the start of it, or had you just resolved that, no, you know what, this is who I am, this is how it's going to be, and did that make it easier? Yes,
great question. So first, I think it's important to say, I mean, a little bit about my background now, you know, very like, you know, you have to make life happen for yourself, which isn't always the best perspective, but that's how I was raised and how I grew up. So with that being said, I saw with Aiden so let me back up a little bit. Aiden is very intentional. She's just, ever since she was born, like she thinks very deeply about everything. Everything has a purpose. Everything has its role. And so whenever I saw that she thought that I was being taken away from her, we would sit down and I would say, you know, like she doesn't understand what like a marketer is or what like a boss is like, but she does understand teaching, which in effect is a part of what I do. Like she has teachers, she understands what a teacher does. So I told her very early, I was like, you know, I love being your mom, right? I love to play with you. I love to draw with you and do homeschool and like all these things that we do together, which are super fun. But I also love to teach. And I also love to do these things. And so we had a dialogue very early that like, yes, mommy is always going to be here for you, but like there are other things that mommy does that bring me joy too. And because it brings me joy, she has made a connection that like, oh, mommy likes it and I can like it too. So we've had a lot of dialogue about that. So that has helped her understand that like, I'm not just working just to just work. Like, you know, this is something that I really like and I'd love for you to be a part of it and you can like it too. So it's been a lot of that.
Not the dialogue that I think a lot of kids get from their working parents. It's such a hard day. I'm so tired.
Yes. And you bring up such a good point. I make it a point to not complain, even on the bad days. I mean, being entrepreneurs, not everything is Instagrammable and glamorous all the time. And her and I have a joke now that she's 5, right? Her vocabulary is much better than it was when she was 2. And like Tuesdays are my really big meeting days. I stack up all my meetings on Tuesdays so that I have other days to spend with her and do creative work and focus on strategy and other things. And like my brain is pretty fried by Tuesday evening. And we're also doing our marketing accelerator program right now. So we also have that, which is unique on Tuesdays. And Aiden will say, Mommy, don't work too much because your brain's going to go bleh. And so yeah, now it's just become part of our life, and she finds joy in it. And now that she's older and she gets to participate in calls and show up, or we'll be looking at like a photo shoot for something, and I'll be like, hey, what do you like better, or stuff like that.
I can't get over it, like how important like that is being revealed to me more and more as I sit here and think about it. It's like, okay, so because I'm probably more in the negative camp sometimes. It's like, oh, Daddy, I'm definitely more likely to be like, well, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I had a long day. Let
me just sit here. Yeah.
And I just haven't thought through what that tells them about work too.
Yes.
About what their life is going to be like when it's time to go into workspace. And I'm like, oh crap. Like that's so convicting. It's like, whereas I'm like sitting here going, well, your daughter's going to be like, sweet, I get to go to work. I'm going to do something I love. Mommy did that. And to be completely honest, it's all perspective. It's, I do love my job. I could easily tell them that. And even if I'm tired, I can still say, well, I'm tired. I had such an amazing day of getting to talk to other people and inspire them.
And that's why I'm tired.
Like, it's all perspective. I don't know, a TED Talk. I listened to a TED Talk the other day, and there was a poem about a cookie thief. And I don't know if you've heard the poem. It's an amazing poem. It's really, really cool.
Is it with the mouse? The story with the mouse?
No. That's if you give a mouse a cookie.
Okay.
This is a poem about a lady who is at an airport, and she bought a bag of cookies and sat down to read. And she's sitting there reading away, looking at the clock to see when she has to go. And she's sitting there pulling out cookies out of the bag and eating it. And then the person sitting next to her pulls cookie out of the bag and starts eating it. And they're going back and forth, and she's getting more and more bothered by it throughout the poem. And then it's time for her flight. So it gets down to the last cookie, and the dude sitting next to her takes it, tears it in half and gives her half of it, and he takes the other half of it, and they go their separate ways. And she's irate. She's like, how dare this guy, like take my cookies and then even get down to the last one, and he's going to split it with me. And so she gets on her airplane, and she's putting her book and everything back in her bag, and she discovers that her bag of cookies is in her bag. And here he had a good attitude and was sharing with her, but she had a completely different, all perspective. All perspective.
And perception is reality, and kind of when we were talking earlier, I was like, I feel like I wanted to say something, but I forgot what it was. And now I remember my mom brain kicked in, but I got it now. For me being a working mom, right, super feminist background, all the things, and raising a daughter, I think it's really good for her to see her mom working. I think it's really good for her to see her mom like leading a call and like participating in these behaviors, and also listening and like sourcing feedback from our team. Like she sees all that now, and I just think that all of that is good for her.
It's good for her to see people living into purpose, into inspiration. Period. I think that's amazing. So as you get ready to welcome another one, what do you think?
It's all going to go to hell. Everything I've planned is just going to go down the change. And both my husband and I are only children, and I'm actually writing a book about this, because whenever we decided, intentionally, okay, we're definitely going to have a second. We have no idea what we're doing. None of us were raised with siblings. Like I really don't have that experience. I had cousins, but it's never the same. And so I was thinking about this, and I was looking for a book that was written by someone who was an only child who is now raising siblings, and I couldn't find it. And so that's my other role, as I love to write. I forgot to mention that earlier. And so I've always wanted to write a book, possibly more. And so that's the book I'm working on now, which is like, my working title is something to the effect of like, the parenting guide, or no, the only child's parenting guide to raising siblings, like how to raise 2 kids when you never had to fight over the window seat, or like something like that.
Nice. I like it.
You know, because it's like my experience does not prepare me really for raising 2 kids. And like all of my other girlfriends who are also working moms who know about our pregnancy, you know, they're all like, oh, you know, they're just going to hate each other. And, you know, kids are always going to fight. I mean, you have 4 kids, maybe you could tell me, and, you know, Hugh over here has 3. So maybe you guys can give me some advice. But, you know, I've seen it firsthand being an athlete for many years. The coach is a huge driver of how the players interact together. When you work on a leadership team, the leadership team is a huge driver of how all the other individuals work on the team. And so I just kind of call it naive. I kind of refuse to believe that, like, you know, your kids are just going to hate each other and the parents just have no control over that. I mean, of course they're going to have conflict, right? But I don't know. I feel like with some serious intention, like there might be a way that we could actually raise these 2 kids to actually like each other. Imagine that. So that's hopefully what this book is going to be about, is me exploring, is that true? What challenges did we run into? And even now, you know, we've started parenting Aiden before this baby's even here intentionally. So, you know, we'll give her names that like we've already pre-vetted, but she doesn't know that. Hey, what do you think about this name? And, you know, here's some paint colors that we've already pre-chosen, but she doesn't know that. What do you think about this paint color? And so like she feels like this is a process that she's involved in, and this isn't something that's happened to her. This is something that's happening to all of us together, and it's a good thing to welcome this new baby. We've even started doing that now, and I'm hoping that will play a role into how she actually accepts this new baby into her world. Yeah,
I would say just don't resign to accept anything less than what is perfectly possible.
Yeah.
I just, so many people want to sell themselves short and just kind of write it off, but I mean, you think about it, a relationship between a brother and a sister. I had an older sister.
Okay.
I had a great relationship. I don't think I've ever hated her, even growing up. Did we fight? Yes, I guess.
Sure. Bicker, yeah.
But at the same token, you know, I look back and I don't feel the stories of like, oh, she was the perfect one, although she was the one that had the good grades and everything. And I would venture to say she never despised me. Maybe when she was little and didn't know better, right? Like all kids are at a certain age. You have to learn empathy. You have to learn how to be relational with people. And so I look back and I think it's possible, but it takes intentionality. It takes hard work. And it also, just like being an entrepreneur, it takes pivoting all the damn time.
A lot of iteration.
Yes. And so I'm going to venture to say you are going to do just fine. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a very, I think, entertaining book.
Yes, it'll be entertaining. And yeah, you know, and then it's like, is this baby going to be a boy or a girl? Like these whole gender role things play a role, like all that comes into play. And yeah, so we're just going to take it little by little and, you know, see how it goes. And my mom is moving here, thank God. That'll be very helpful.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because we didn't have hardly any help with Aiden, not really.
Dude, you know? the babysitter battle is real.
It's serious.
And,
it's
once you find one good one, everybody's gonna find out about it. Like, you gotta protect that. I've had people here at work be like, "Hey, do you have a babysitter?" Nope.
No.
I do not know one. Funny you should ask. Do you know another one?
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, so I have definitely, you know, the business is taking a new life of its own. Like I'm literally growing a new life right now. My daughter's going to go into kindergarten, which is a huge deal for her and for us. It's just a really big season of change. My mom's moving here from Florida. And so with all that happening, I've just, you know, kind of let the universe unfold, and we'll set our intention and we'll just kind of ride out the wave together on our boat.
Well, I love it. And being very, if I would sum it up, and please correct me if I derail it a little, but just the intentionality to unapologetically live the life you want to live.
Yep.
It's just an amazing story. And I will even correct it. It's not the life you want to live. It's the life you want to live for you and your family, because it's not a selfish thing at all. I love that your intentionality is not so I can have a great life. It's so that we can be an amazing family, an amazing daughter, an amazing business, and all of those things. So
it's so funny you say that, because one of our brand values for the company is to allow our customers to live the lives that they want. And, the women who are part of our community, who participate in our programs, some of them do want to build the next tech unicorn. Awesome. Most of them don't. Most of them have this great Etsy store and they make amazing earrings, and they just want to create wealth for themselves, and they want to be able to go on vacation and experience life. And I have this, I've always had this perspective, like, you get up to the top of the mountain and you are mega successful, but you've had to alienate everybody on your way there. Like, was it really worth it? Is it really worth you being up there? I have a lot of very good girlfriends who are really successful. I have a friend of mine who's about to exit her company for like $250 million plus. And I adore her. I so respect her, but I'm like, I don't think that's me. What she's had to sacrifice to do that, that's not for me,
Right. It's not for everybody, and the life I live is not for everybody either. The key is figuring out the life you want and being intentional to it, which you guys are doing a bang up job.
Thanks. It's nice to hear that from an outsider, because when you live it every day, you're like, I don't know. Right. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day who her kids are much older, and she's having some issues with her boys in college, and I was like, do you ever really know like how well or not well you did until your kids are older? You just kind of hope for the best.
I live in that ambiguity too. Our oldest is 12, and it's just like, I don't know what the next phase is going to be. It's just like, okay, we'll take the hits as they come and keep on rolling.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your time, for joining us. I do appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it was fun.
Perfect. And thank you for joining us.